Thank you for this. I have not even downloaded it. We have a place for
There's an extra chair here. Anywhere there's not a placard.
Hi there.
Charlie.
Charlie, I'm Ann. Nice to meet you.
August.
How are you, Mr. Jeff?
I'm good.
Good.
I saw Jeff at the grocery store last night and I didn't recognize him at first. Then I thought, well, you're out of your element, you know. So it occurred to me though.
Was he in flip flops and a bathrobe?
Yeah, do you tell, huh?
How much out of an element? Walk down the sidewalk again. and-
Well, in his yard too, they worked really hard. Yeah, yeah. Are they local?
It said Columbia Gorge Landscape on it, so I don't know where they're coming
Oh, I
from.
thought it was gorgeous, something gorgeous on it. It wasn't
Okay.
what we normally think. That's what caught my eye.
Hmm.
Yeah, they worked really hard.
Ready to start? It's 6 o'clock, I think.
Looks like.
Yeah, exactly 6 o'clock. So let's come to order this evening. Welcome all. And Ben, do you want to go through the remote access procedures or process for us tonight?
Yes, it's not going to benefit too many people. Johanna's on line as our minute taker. If we get people that come in, we'll make a reminder for those on the phone to do a *6 to unmute themselves and *9 to raise their hand. And we now have some on the phone. So *6 or *9 is what we'll need to see, and we'll monitor the screen up here just to look for those hands to join the discussion.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ben. Public comment for those items that are not on the agenda. Mary, would you have anything you'd like to say tonight?
Well, yes, I want to share something with you all. I'll be sharing it with the Gorge Commission tomorrow, and I thought I'd share it with you tonight. And that it makes me sad. So just, we were told that we would see America come and go. In a sense, America is dying from within because they forgot the instructions of how to live on earth. It's the Hopi belief, it's our belief that if you are not spiritually connected to the earth and understand the spiritual reality of how to live on earth, it's likely that you will not make it. I'm reading the Gorge Commission's climate change plan. This is very appropriate. Everything is spiritual. Everything has a spirit. Everything was brought here by the creator, the one creator. Some people call him God. Some people call him Buddha. Some people call him Allah. Some people call him other names. We call him Tankashila, grandfather. We are here on earth only a few winters. Then we go to the spirit world. The spirit world is more real than most of us believe. The spirit world is everything. Over 95% of our body is water. And in order to stay healthy, you've got to drink good water. Water is sacred and the air is sacred. Our DNA is made out of the same DNA as the tree. The tree breathes what we exhale. We need what the tree exhales. So we have a common destiny with the tree. We are all from the earth. And when the earth, the water, the atmosphere is corrupted, then it will create its own reaction. The mother is reacting. In the Hopi prophecy, they say the storms and floods will become greater. To me, it's not a negative thing to know that there will be great change. It's not negative, it's evolution. When you look at it as evolution, it's time. Nothing stays the same. You should learn how to plan something. That is the first connection. You should treat all things as spirit. Realize that we are one family. It's never something like the end. It's like life. There is no end to life. And this was written by Floyd Red Crow Westerman, and it's from his All Natives United. We are all connected. We all belong. So, I think if we take something like this to heart, all our decision making will be good. We might make some mistakes along the way, but if you base everything on taking care of the earth so that it takes care of you, then I think we're all good. That's what I wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Mary. It reminds me a lot of the messages that I got out of reading Braiding Sweetgrass. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. It's basically a novel written by a Native American woman who's also a botanist and a biologist, and trying to reconcile those sort of cultural aspects of her native background with the science. And it's quite an interesting book in terms of how we approach environmental issues in this country.
Well, I would urge all of you to read the climate change plan that the Gorge Commission has put out for comment, especially in light of the fact for the Golden Dale Energy Project and the water that would be taken out of the Columbia for that. We've got problems, and they're big problems. So this just struck me and speaks to me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd like to add to that is that, 99 point something percent of our DNA is all alike. And we are, a nation of different cultures, of different, ethnicities, but we are all involved in this journey. So, yeah, this is kind of the politician in me coming out. It's just white people got to get over it. World's getting browner. We need to, move along together. I don't know, just rambling. I mean, it's odd saying that because since Melvin left town, there's not a person of color in Stevenson.
Except the boat people
Except what?
from the boat.
Right,
It's very
right.
diverse on the boat.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Does Joanna need a roll call, Bob?
If she does, we do have all 4 commissioners in attendance this evening. Honors isn't here, so I don't have a sign-in sheet.
I just wanted to ease her note keeping if she needs a roll call.
I'm not sure if she can see you.
Well, things got to bounce around.
Are we still doing random stuff?
Sure.
So this occurred to me. What would be involved in having an Amtrak stop here?
A what?
Amtrak stop.
Oh, you mean the one that they got rid of many, many decades ago? That was
Yeah.
in downtown Stevenson,
Yeah,
because they were so short-sighted. Probably you'd have to give Gus an arm and a leg,
He's retired now.
you see?
Mhm.
The other guy.
I don't know. What I was told is when we got close to establishing one in the 80s or 90s, that the rail line was not allowing new Amtrak stops, and one of the existing ones in this corridor would have to be built. I'm sure things have changed in 4 years, but I don't know.
Vision has a rail stop.
Engine has one, yes.
This Cascade Locks,
I don't. think
I
so.
don't know.
they used to have one. I don't know.
Engine, Wishram, so there's 2 bridges on
Yeah,
that.
it's all.
on that step.
Amtrak's is set up.
Oh,
It just seems like it'd be easy just, to stop, everybody off, everybody on.
It would be nice to have rail service into the gorge, a localized rail service actually to help alleviate some of the traffic that we have. It would be good, but probably not anything that we're really prepared to support.
I mean, I don't think we'd have to I don't think we'd have to build a train station or anything like that. Just platform or something.
yeah, the one in Vancouver isn't very large. I think the one in Vancouver is actually probably as small as the one that used to be down here from the pictures. And, and they're trying to get more and more people to do mass transit. So, and for missions and everything else. So, why not? I think the problem would be in scheduling the freight versus the human traffic. Or not human traffic, but human traveling.
So who would be the person to address that?
I don't know. I know in the city of Leavenworth's case that their mayor was the big local champion that got Amtrak service back to Leavenworth from Seattle.
Well, everybody knows Mayor McScott.
It would have to be a city priority and effort towards it.
Well, I can ask him, I guess.
My question would be is what is it you hope to achieve with Amtrak? In other words, what kind of service do you want? Do you want a service that's convenient to move people from here to Portland, Vancouver, Seattle? Or are you looking for something that brings people in here that we might be able to link with other forms of transportation for
Well, we
for
are,
recreation? But it's quite different than the sort of random Amtrak schedules that we see now.
well, we do have there's a big paddle wheel boat parked down there all the time. I mean, that could be a magnet. And most of the people that I know who have suggested it to me, they either go to Bingen or they go to Vancouver. So that's a big voice of energy.
Well, it'd be nice to get to the airport from here without having to leave your car there at $12 a day.
Yeah, trust me, I just did that, $72.
Again, I just think you need to think about what is it that you really want to achieve through that service. Because I'm not so sure the current Amtrak service through here would meet many of those needs at all. Given the hours that it comes through and the destinations that it has. I'm not quite sure it syncs up with what we may see as the needs here and the potential.
Well, weekend people who use the shuttles during the summer. And the Dog Mountain shuttle, and they're trying to get people to be spread out. So maybe throw them out in the woods and see who comes back in the evening.
Well, and we have the bus to what's
The
the
cat bus, yeah.
Fisher's Landing.
Fisher's Landing?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That takes some time.
Oh, it's
Hopefully a
terrible.
Train would be faster.
You certainly get a different view from the train,
Mhm.
but it's probably very scenic.
Or not. You're going through Seattle.
Well, I
Yeah, I
meant
know.
particularly here.
Yeah.
And then there's the big tunnel at the, at the Horn.
Yeah.
up right through.
Well, it would be nice to investigate it and see. That's a project. Just call BNSF and ask them. Doesn't hurt. You can always say no.
I'm on it.
Okay. There you go.
It's almost, I think we're thinking something more on the scale of some of the commuter rail that you see in the Seattle area, for example.
Well, my thought has always been that they need to take one lane from 84 and try to do a train, except, the tunnels might be a little difficult and that,
Little
but,
I'll check with Scott as well and see what he thinks about it.
yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments before we jump into this agenda, or more formal agenda?
Meditation 101 tomorrow night. I told you about this last
Yes, you
time.
did.
Melissa Matern will be leading that, just in case you need to de-stress a little. You have to sign up for the
Certainly times
library.
here in these recent months, then de-stressing is important. Okay, let's go to approval of our minutes from our June 13th meeting. Everybody got a chance to take a look at those? Any additions, corrections, deletions, modifications, rants or raves?
I would motion to approve as entered.
Second.
Thank you, August. Thank you, Brady. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side. And minutes are approved. Then we have a short plat that you want us to take a look at here and make a determination as to what our role as a planning commission would be, if any.
Right, so we do have a short plat proposal. This is a 2-lot short plat on East Loop Road, just past the Frank Johns intersection up here. All short plats are to come to the planning commission for you all to decide whether you'll take it up and provide any comments to the short plat administrator in the decision-making process. That's me. Usually recommend that things look fine with it and move forward. In this case, we have the letter from a neighbor that came in verbally and drew on a map and said he's concerned about the additional use of septics on the property there and potential impact to his property downhill. Investigated this with the environmental health department at Skamania County, who approved septics. She stood by her decision, even in light of this. They did the appropriate perk tests on the property. There wasn't standing water within those, and that there was an appropriate design. So still, because we have this comment from the public and you all represent the public, want you to decide whether to take the opportunity to review and provide your own comments on this. Tried to lay it out a range of potential comments, so you could do as we recommend with other ones and just entrust the decision to staff. Or you could require connection to the sewer line when one comes up. The status quo would be that if a sewer line goes past an existing septic system, that existing septic can continue on until there's a problem with it, needs to be replaced, or it stops functioning in some way, and then they would have to connect. This potential recommendation you could make here would be to just require whenever the sewer line comes up, you could one step farther require connection and participation in some sort of improvement district to bring it up. You could take it a step farther than that and require connection at this time. So I don't know where you want to go with that. I just tried to lay the range out there if you wanted to take it up and be responsive to it. Feedback we received.
I have one question about this. Is there any existing septic on there already? No. Okay.
Which property is that? Going north from Frank John's?
Going north from Frank John's, Jerry Larson has the blue house that's set back.
Oh, it's across the street.
It's on the downhill side of Blue Road.
Okay, so up from Brian,
Downhill.
Brian, and then him, Jerry.
I believe so.
Okay, which property is this for?
It was just a historic, I believe there was part of, well, I don't know the history of it, but it's just.
'Cause I don't-
big-
This map doesn't give you any relationships. Where are the other lots, the other houses located?
There's a house directly to the north, you can continue up the road, and one to the south. This is just a vacant property right now that they cleaned up, removed brush, some trees. And it just cleaned off. There's no structures there. I don't ever remember any structures ever having been on that particular.
I believe that it was an orchard for one of the neighboring houses.
So it's on the right-hand side.
As you're going up the hill.
Is it past Ben and Margot's? Yeah, they're the last house before all that, before the brown house. Further up. Because some of that used to be like holes in the ground. And they were filled up with things that were left over from construction. And people just dumped a lot of stuff. And then they put soil on top and grew grass. So that's why I'm asking if it's that area on the right-hand side as you're going up Frank John's Road past all the houses, because there's no lots in between all the houses until you come to the open area, and then the brown house, and then the old Wright house, and then Simmons Road.
It's on Blue Road.
Oh, Cherry. Oh, I see. Oh, the one that was surveyed. I know, I'm trying to figure out where the hell this is.
Right.
Going
Going
up
up Loop, you pass Frank John's. At that one house, then there's another house, then there's the vacant lot, and then there's a.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Yeah, Jerry, our Jerry, from the county, Jerry. Okay. the one that was surveyed, that the survey showed that the fence line was in the wrong place.
I think that's correct.
Okay, okay. Isn't there sewer up Loop Road?
So I conclude the staff report by saying I don't have official guidance to offer on this issue. This would really be a planning commission deciding whether you want to review it and reviewing it the way you want to review it. You have a return comment letter from the applicant, and they're also in attendance here tonight. If you want to see.
What is the city's status with all septic tanks right now? So no matter where you live, if sewer comes in front of you, you have to hook up. Is there a time frame? We haven't figured that out yet, have
You
we?
have to hook up if your septic fails.
Okay. Can we treat this any different?
Um,
Because you're supposed to treat everybody the same.
It would. If you offer comments, I will take them under advisement and see if
Okay,
our code can support it.
okay.
Um,
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So the septic field has to have 18,000 square feet, right, for a normal septic field?
I don't know. They
Yeah.
receive our septic.
Yeah,
Well, my question is Mr. Larson is clearly concerned about groundwater seepage. Is that, you know, you basically had a conversation, you didn't really give us too much to work on. I don't know what he's observed or what he's seen, but
He's concerned about a shallow subsurface flow there. Like I said, the most colorful part of it was that water just comes out of the molehills when it's wet. And so he's got a shallow well that's non-potable water that he uses for irrigation and to wash the trucks. And then he has a basement that has groundwater flow into that. And so he doesn't know what direction the subsurface flow is. He does suspect that it's coming from that property.
well, I mean, that's immediately upgrading them, so I guess that's probably a logical assumption. And what did the county environmental health person say?
They had also spoken with Mr. Larson and understood the concern. He passed all the tests that they do. The septic design was appropriate. She felt like the rules are adequate to cover concerns. She talked more about the stream to the back of the property and wondering if that setback was appropriate for that. Then she was more concerned about that than she was about any neighboring property.
is that Valid Creek?
It's either valid or an unnamed tributary to valid. I don't know what you would call it once it breaks off there. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how far Valid goes up. And it's Valid of Fishberry?
um,
I don't believe so.
I wouldn't think so.
yeah.
Well, don't say that because Fish and Wildlife did that
Mhm.
the stuff and I don't know. Because I remember when Shenandoah came in that I thought there was something about the creek. Questions? So what happens if somebody's septic field follows your water or your land? Like if that is going downhill to Jerry's, and you find out that there's E. coli in it or whatever, so what happens then?
I'm sure that'd be private action.
You know what they say, it flows downhill.
Yes, it does. That's why you guys get paid the big bucks.
Well, my concern is we really don't, I mean, we have his concern. But I don't know. the veracity of that concern, I guess, in terms of what he's seen or what the conditions are on the property. It's just been a casual conversation. You want to be certainly adequately protected of that adjacent property.
Yeah, so I think that's appropriate too. So I think that's what we currently have established, and that's what I would suggest that we recommend.
Do you have to include it in the conditions?
It's already there. Isn't that policy right now?
If city staff received this comment as the administrator of the short plat ordinance, had we received the comment and had a specific policy to tie it to, would have reported that to you all instead of bringing it to you. So we got a comment from the public. I'm not able to do anything with it as the ordinance administrator, giving you all as representatives of the public some consideration of that comment and balancing how to move forward. So if you want to be responsive to that, we will take a hard look at how to do that within those city regulations. And if I'm able to do something, we will. If I'm not able to do something, then continue on as it is.
Do we have to do anything about the short plat? No.
Provide recommendations if you choose.
Okay.
We had this kind of conversation about
Yeah, that's-
sewers and hooking up to sewers when we were doing that capital improvement element of the comprehensive plan. And doesn't that provide us with that policy direction? Or
We haven't adopted it yet.
haven't adopted it yet? So that's that's the problem.
So again, the city basically says any homeowner with an existing septic, once sewer's gone in, when your septic fails, you have to hook up.
But your policy says within 5 years, if
Not yet.
doesn't it,
No.
or will say.
Who knows what we'll say.
Yeah.
We haven't even said. say
Right
something.
now, what the city says is when your septic fails, you have to hook up.
So this is just saying that when it becomes available, that you will participate in the cost of that extension and you'll hook up to it. Obviously, the short plat person is not going to be affected by this. It's whoever's actually building on the lot.
Yeah, this is an issue that's going to continue to come up, and I would hope that we could have some pretty specific policy in terms of how we're going to deal with these things. You know, you can always take an exception to that policy, but right now it seems like, you know, it's sort of,
Vague.
yeah.
Sort of like a backstop, you know.
Well, yeah. I agree with I think recommendation 3. I think that when that sewer is available, they should hook up to it and bear the expense of doing that. If we don't do that, if it's simply on a failure basis, you'll never get enough critical mass to extend the sewer up to some of these areas. So,
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Well, I think it does address, you know, the concern that Mr. Larson has, and that, you know, there is no alternative right now besides, you know, bringing sewer up there before you start building. I mean, the city's not prepared to do that. So why would the potential new home builder have to do that also? But when it becomes available, certainly hook up, and that would, you know, take into consideration that groundwater issue.
But then we run into that whole problem of, you know, these, you know, how much money do you spend and when does the sewer service become available? Are you compelled to, you've already spent a whole lot of money on it?
Rick and Rhonda sewer at Loop and Price Rock, and just.
Well, see, one related example is if someone wants to build a house that doesn't have a black water system and they want to do a composting toilet or something like that, most of the counties still require you to put in a full black water septic system. You don't have to hook up to it, but you have to put it in regardless. So, you know,
But can
that's
we-
an expense that you have to do anyway. So if a new person is coming in and they're buying this property, if they know that potentially it's gonna be more than 6 years, correct? That at that time, they'd have to do a connection to the city sewer and pay their proportional share for that hookup. They know that ahead of time. I mean,
I think, again, if we're looking at how we're gonna logically and effectively extend those services, you have to have that expectation.
well, and it has to be a continuity across the board. It can't be then in this section, we're gonna do this. and
That's
then
my
this
concern,
one.
because you're talking about 2 lots with separate rules from the rest of the city,
What I'm,
Well, we don't, I mean,
you know?
it's not really separate rules because like Ben says, they haven't been adopted yet. We do have the language that would create the beginning of the continuity, right?
I think our
For
recommendation,
connecting.
Not really.
I think we're making a recommendation here. And it's recommending that that landowner hook up to that sewer and cover the cost of that. I think we'd like to see that be pretty much a policy for all those folks up there that are currently on the septic system. Because if you're never going to extend the sewer line up there, if they can all sit there and wait for 10 or 15 or 20 years until their septic system fails. No one's going to invest that money in that public capital improvement.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between an existing house that is on septic and yeah, when that system fails, that's the point that would trigger them into that. But for a new development, I mean, as somebody coming in building, you're going to anticipate that there's going to be these additional restrictions on there, not somebody who's lived in the house for 30 years and suddenly sewer's coming by, I'm forced to hook up to it. So there's a little bit of subtle difference in there. But the intent, I think, is that everybody needs to hook up to the sewer.
Yeah, because I mean, it's sort of a given that, septic systems are gonna fail eventually, right? So,
Well, you don't even know if there are failed systems because we don't have septic. What am I looking for?
We've required inspections of septic systems in the state.
Has everybody in the city done it? Does the city
no.
know that they've done it?
No.
So septic fields fail like 30, 40 years down the road. I suspect some of those septic fields have failed by now, but nobody knows about it, especially people who are city people who move here and don't know about septic fields. So, I think the city needs to find out how many failed septic fields, if any, do you have?
Tighten this up for a minute, figure your name.
Mary Rapar. Johanna.
I agree. I don't think we want to single these folks out for some extraordinary
No,
action.
you have to do what
But
you have to
but
do.
I think what we really want the city to do is to say, hey, when sewer is available in your area, you hook up to it. And I don't think you say only when your existing septic system fails. I think it's when it's available, because if it's just when that existing septic system fails, you may have one person up there that goes on for, that may fail early on, but no one's gonna pay for a sewer system that's not generating any revenue and runs by all these houses. They're still sitting on this.
Well, you could tie that into a requirement for an inspection. So if you're going to ask for let's say an 8-year, leniency on hookup, that you have to have your septic system inspected and it has to be fully functional.
Isn't that what we're kind of working toward with the plan that we've been working on?
It's something that the city obviously needs to grapple with.
Yeah, I think
how
maybe
it
this
works
raises an issue that we need to take some time and have a more thorough discussion of, but
Well, I remember your discussion and the 5 years came into it or when the sewer was available. And so I thought that was in the capital improvement plan
that
as a
portion of it-
policy.
whichever came first, 5 years or,
Yeah, nothing about failures.
That's right now. That's right now.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
no, failures should be taken off the table.
Okay, so what do we want to do about this particular situation? We have the county health person saying there are acceptable sites out here for septic drain field. If we say, gosh, no, unless you extend sewer, we're sort of ignoring the fact that everybody else up there is on septic systems as it is. I think it would be
Existing. This
right.
would be new construction.
Well, I understand that, but I think that you're putting an unfair burden on that landowner if you said he had to hook up to sewer today to be able to develop that site. I think,
I kind of agree that there should be a limit. You know, you should say 5 years or failure, whichever comes first. That's fair to everybody, right?
But in one scenario, you would have a house that would currently be on septic that is still functional. And if you had that 5-year key in, you're talking about a sewer system that already exists and runs. What this is a little bit different because we're talking about when it gets run up there, then do they get an extra 5 years over that? Or do they have to pay their proportional share to look into it at that time? And I think if it's a new run, then I think that's what they did on Frank John's is they had to pay now, right? Didn't they pay a
Latecomer
proportional share?
agreement. So, if they connect within the latecomer period. they have to-
Let's.
And what was that period?
It's set statutorily and it's changed since I've been monitoring it. I believe
Okay.
it's 20 years right now.
So let's do a hypothetical. Bone Road. Suppose sewer goes in up there. How do all the residents, deal with, I mean, are they allowed to continue to use the septic or must they, after 5 years, join the sewer?
Let me make this easier. I'm not gonna build a mousetrap that involves a 5-year at a time. Like, I can't find a way to justify that professionally with him. So, some trigger that's not, a hard trigger like that to focus on, what if it's an extension of a line and you have to connect, but I would find it very hard to write and then justify that condition of 5 years, just because that's what came out around the table.
I threw it out there just as a,
It wasn't, it's just what.
yeah.
So I'm trying to simplify the discussion instead of you going further into the details. To,
well, then let me suggest this then. I think, and rather than sort of couching it as a recommendation focused directly on this particular property, make it a more general recommendation that you consider when you look at this property. And that's that we really think that when sewer is available, adjacent property owners, whether it's undeveloped land or whether they're existing homes with septic systems, should be required to hook up to that system and pay for the cost of hooking that up. We're not singling them out. We're really saying that we really think that needs to be the broader policy for the city. I don't know how you get the economics of getting a sewer extended and protecting both the public health and the water resources unless you have that requirement that people are going to participate in. You're just not going to lay a pipe up there and let it languish for 20 years while people's septic systems continue out there. So that's my recommendation. I don't know.
Seems reasonable.
I would second that.
I'd go with it too.
Yeah. We can't keep giving waivers to people to put in septic fields when we just spent $12 million on a sewer plant. you know, everybody needs to suffer equally.
Oh, thanks.
There are some
Everyone
benefits
needs
to
to
having.
benefit.
a
Mary,
separate
thanks for
system.
cheering us all up.
There are some benefits.
So which recommendation?
I think the recommendation is, again, it's a generic recommendation that we really believe that all properties ought to be required to hook up to the sewer system when it's available and pay the cost of doing that. And so that's a general recommendation in terms of what we feel about any location in the city, and then can take that into consideration and see.
And isn't that
Exactly.
kind of what's in the capital improvement plan anyway?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so we're heading in the right direction.
Heading in the
There's
same
a
direction that we
continuity
were.
there.
Right, that's great.
You don't want to have contradictory policies.
Okay,
Are we
Uh,
supposed to?
I understand that. It falls mostly in line with number 3 here, and I will take that under advisement in making the decision. As the conversation about septics unfolds, and I don't know when that would be, but I did hear it. A new wrinkle here is building in an inspection and pumping program requirement into that program. So that's an idea that we shouldn't lose as the policies really crystallize in the future too. So, okay,
Do you need a motion on that then?
I think we were just guiding you, weren't we, with our opinions?
yeah, and
Motion for guidance.
if you all feel like you know what I heard, motions are for your benefit, so that
Well, I'm sure Joanna will catch. the
I
gist of the
second that emotion.
conversation. All right,
all right.
going back to old business. Planning Commission vacancy.
Mhm.
Mr. Hills, who was unable to join us at the last meeting for technical difficulties, let's put it that way, is with us tonight. And you just, yeah, I would invite you to, tell us why, why with everything you've done and your background, would you want to sit on this?
At first, again, my apologies for the bobble last month. That was the dumbest of errors, as I explained to Ben and Jeff. I'm working part-time overseas, and I set my alarm for 5 a.m. in order to be awake for the meeting. And I thought I set my alarm for 5 a.m., but actually I set my alarm for 5 p.m. And so I blissfully slept through your meeting and got up at 7 a.m. So anyway, I'm working in Saudi Arabia part-time for the next 6 months. And that's my current sentence. Well, I appreciate the chance to come and talk about this and to answer any questions you may have for me. Basically my reason that I'm interested in this is Nancy and I live here now. We've lived both in Stevenson and Portland back and forth over the course of our marriage. And now we live here, and I believe in putting time and effort into the city work. And I've done that in Portland, where I served in public office for 15 years, both as a city commissioner and then as mayor. And then I've tried to do it as a volunteer whenever I could in the rest of my life. I've had a weird career of like 15 years in public office, 15 years working for this architecture and engineering company I work for now, HDR, doing transportation planning and urban planning. And then before that, I worked for the Home Builders Association, Metropolitan Portland. So in one capacity or another, my whole career has been about how cities get built. I wouldn't have necessarily predicted that when I graduated from college, but how that goes with your career path is sometimes you get led to a direction, and I really believe in planning. So to me, it seems like Stevenson's at a point where some things have been done well, some things maybe have not been done well. That's the history of everybody's planning, but it's really got a chance to do things well in the future. To me, planning at any scale, whether it's the scale of Portland, where I've focused a lot of my life, or the scale of here, it's all about preserving what you want to preserve and shaping change in the way you want to see change happen. There's going to be change. you know, you as the planning commission and the city council get to try to shape that change, you know, within the practicalities of cost and what people can bear in terms of regulations. So it's to me, it's a fascinating process of trying to see around the corner and shape change to our purposes. And again, I love this community. Nancy and I have decided this is where we're going to spend the rest of our lives. We have grandchildren now who love to spend time with us here, as well as our kids. By some strange miracle, our 5 kids, my 3 and her 2, when we got married, have all migrated back to the general area. 1 in Gresham, 2 in Skamania County now, but they're all here in the general area. So we plan for this house to be a grandchild magnet for the foreseeable future. It's working out that way. So that's why I'm here. As I mentioned in my statement, we only own 1 piece of property in Stevenson, the one where our house sits on Chester Road. So we don't have any conflicts of interest in terms of, you know, on the investment property or anything here.
Oh, hey, he's up the street from you.
So that's my situation. Again, I really enjoy the opportunity to be a member of this commission and to work with you to deal with those issues of change and the stuff you're just talking about. How do you deal with whatever you may want to go back and say 50 years ago would have been proper for everybody to connect to the sewer. Well, that's not where we are, you know, and so we can't turn back the clock. You have to work with what you have now. And the other thing I really believe, and I've certainly seen this in my career and in public life, is it's really good for communities to learn from each other. You know, we have our issues and problems and opportunities here in Stevenson, but other communities have grappled with the same things, and it's good to learn from how they did it right or how they did it wrong. And I've always believed that, you know, whether through the League of Cities or any other forum, it's really good for cities, for communities to learn from each other. So I've always been a lifelong learner about that. And again, my career gives me sort of a strange perspective. If we think we have climate problems, let me tell you about Riyadh. You know, there are places in the world that are you know, that we can learn from and emulate and wish we could be more like. And there are also places in the world that are a cautionary tale that you would say, boy, where are we not going to do that? So I've had a chance to see some of each.
You said for the next, 6 months, you're working on this. I mean, what's your ability to participate?
Good question. No, my life plan at this point is to work full time for about next 6 months and then go to part time next year at our company, and maybe work for another 6 months or a year part time. But I am on a glide path to retirement. I'm real happy to be able to say that.
So we can fill in some of those hours.
Yeah, right. Put some volunteer time where the job used to be. No, I'm looking forward to that.
Good questions. Honest.
It's kind of a general thing, but what are your thoughts on affordable housing?
I mean, it's a challenge almost everywhere. It's a challenge in places where it didn't used to be one, like here. You know, I've certainly been through that big upswing in Portland, where, you know, when I first moved to Portland, I bought a house for $60,000 and thought I paid too much. And so that is a significant challenge in any place where there's growth, any place where there's in-migration, and we've got a little bit of both here. To put it bluntly, I don't think there's very much we can do in the way, by way of zoning and regulation to assure affordability. The only way to really get to affordability for at least lower middle income and below in terms of income is public subsidy. One way or another, housing costs so much that if you really want it to be affordable, density bonuses and those kind of things aren't enough with current construction costs, or what I would see as likely construction costs anytime soon. So it's kind of a hard truth that, as far as I'm concerned, it's the truth that if you really want to provide truly affordable housing from some source, there has philanthropy, you know, state or local, there has to be some kind of subsidy to get to true affordability.
Mhm.
It's not, not that I don't believe that should happen, but it's kind of a tough love message. It's like, okay, you want to, where's the money? Show me the money, as the movie said. You know, where's the money that's gonna produce affordable units? Because you can't get there by regulation, in my experience.
It's just it's a recurrent concern that we have. I mean, like everyone else, everywhere in the world. Is, you know, how do we keep the people that are currently here, you know, able to afford to stay here and they're not driven out because they're outpriced in housing and they just kind of, you know, and then you basically lost, you know, the people and the core of what you considered your community.
Exactly right. And it can cause huge economic disruption. Our son Rob just moved back from, he was living in Jackson, Wyoming for a while. And they would have loved to have bought a house there, but it was impossible. And so the people, and he had a good job. He was an assistant manager of a resort. And so he said, basically, we're never going to be able to own a home here. I'm moving back to the Gorge and I'll figure it out there. Well, fortunately, he can maybe still figure it out here. But resort communities or, you know, destination communities, and we are that to an extent. Destination communities face that problem. Where do the people that work in the restaurant, you know, or in the lodge or any other service industry?
Where's the
work?
service? Yeah.
Yeah. And where do they live? And I think that is again a big challenge, and we can do a little bit by regulation and planning and zoning. But I think at the end of the day, there has to be some source of subsidy to get to true affordability.
Well, I will be honest and tell all of you that I live in subsidized housing. So, you know, I'm all in for that because, I mean, there are outside things that drive the prices of the market that just you can't deal with. I mean, that you can't buy a house around here for, you know, $500,000.
It's amazing.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree. And I'll reiterate what I said last time. I thought both your resumes were really good. My graduate studies are in public policy planning and management, so I get where you're coming from. Doesn't make the decision any easier though.
I'm glad you have a splendid misery, more than one good candidate to join you on this important body.
If you guys want to go into executive
Yeah,
session,
I
we
should-
can leave.
If you have any other questions for me, I can answer them, and otherwise
You can
I'll
have your
let you
discussion.
go let you deliberate. And frankly, if you got a problem with not enough seats now, I'll be interested in the future. It's not something that I feel like I'll do now or never. So,
Well, I asked for both of you.
Yeah.
So,
In the next 6 months, would you be able to make meetings or how would you?
yeah,
work that
I
out?
may have to do virtual a couple of times.
Set your alarm.
Depending on my travel schedule. I have some
Perfect.
control over that, so I can avoid being gone, you know, this night each month, most of the time. So
We can Zoom.
even though I have a client over there that I'm working for, I have some control over my schedule.
Great.
Okay.
And frankly, 6 more months of flying to Riyadh will be about enough.
Enough, yeah.
Well,
I can appreciate that.
no place like home, I'll tell you. Thank you. Appreciate the chance to come explain myself a little bit, and would appreciate the chance to work with you.
I appreciate your interest. Certainly, you bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good process you're working on. And as you know, tonight's deliberation, there's no easy answer. Just judgment calls.
That's right.
There's also the homeless housing council that you might give some thought to.
Yeah.
We meet once a month.
Yeah.
And there's quite another number of groups, and the Lions Club is always looking for good people.
Yeah. Homelessness is the national and West Coast plague.
oh, Portland, tent city,
Is,
right?
I'm just heartsick about the situation in Portland, and yet it's not just Portland. You know, as critical as I might be of some of the things that have been done lately in Portland, you know, look at LA, look at San Francisco.
We're gonna have an influx of climate refugees,
That's right.
so I'm worried about that.
You should be. Yeah. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Safe
So we'll chat
travel.
again.
Tehran was much nicer. On the east side of Saudi. I lived there for 3 years. It was only 100 degrees.
But it's dry heat.
It was, except in August. Then it went to 100% humidity.
I lived in Washington DC and it was 95 degrees
Oh,
and
it's misery.
95% relative humidity in the
Mhm.
summer. Walking around in a wool suit was like walking around in an old wet wool sock after about 10 minutes. This was awesome.
Yeah, we went to the Rubicali and it was like 125 and the guy gave us some hot tea to drink. And it was like, okay, but you can't do cold. Your body would just freeze up. Now, lots of mint tea with lots of sugar. Yeah. It's an interesting country.
It is.
Did you want to deliberate? I can exit.
You don't have to exit, Mary, but it's.
Whatever you guys want to do.
It's recorded and we're online anyway, so
Whatever you prefer.
It's not a closed meeting.
We're not making a hiring decision. We're making a recommendation to the city council. So, there is no, I think, executive session permitted that, it's going to be in the public arena. So I'd ask folks, what do you think? I was kind of intrigued to see Charlie Hale show up here and want to participate on the planning commission, given his expertise and his background.
Definitely.
And at the same time, I've known his wife for a good number of years, and they really have been very active. She has certainly in this community. She's never really left it in spirit of them. She invented the Southwest Washington Community Foundation for a good period of time, and I think it's an asset. I think it's pretty interesting to see who's moving into this community and what backgrounds they bring. What are your thoughts?
I would certainly lean towards Mr. Hales. He has a level of experience that certainly would give us an insight into a lot of the issues that we're going to have to deal with, and he dealt with on a higher level. Not that that means that his capacity is any greater than ours, but he has that experience, and so I'm always an advocate of making use of people that have the experience and have made the mistakes and learned from them and can pass that on without us having to repeat those same mistakes before we learn them. That's, I think he presented a very intelligent and full.
He's got the crowds, man, but like he said, he's gonna be in Riyadh for 6 months.
I mean, now that we do remote stuff, I mean, pre-COVID, yeah, I mean, I tried to be here in every meeting. During COVID, none of us were here.
Right.
We all did it remotely. So if, out of the next 6 months, he has to do a remote meeting, I may do more remote meetings than that myself. So I don't see that as an hinderment at this point in time where we are.
And
I think both Mr. Lawson and Mr. Hales are qualified candidates. Of course, Mr. Hales has gone way beyond the planning commission. I like both candidates for different reasons.
You could expand the seats to 7. And then you could have both of them and then have an empty one.
While we're at it, why don't we add some seats to the Supreme Court?
Barry, what are your thoughts? I mean, where are we on wanting to make a recommendation?
I'm gonna go with August on this one. I think Mr. Hales is probably the guy.
I think Mr. Lexington is a good candidate. I don't want to discourage him. I would ultimately like to see people with that level of interest on the board. I think I would probably go with Mr. Hales just not just because of his experience and his background. I think also his interest, the fact that he would come and be is interested in this community. And he's been here for several years, so he has, I think, a little more of a feeling about the town. But I don't want to, I'd like to encourage Mr. Lexington to still be interested. We'd like him to, consider, if another vacancy comes up. Do we have any options?
The last time the planning commission wrestled with a decision like that, I think was when you were appointed. Did you interview with David Bennett?
Yes.
And so planning commission also at that time said, well, we don't want to lose his interest in the future. And so adding him to the city council's appointment of ex officio members. And so those are planning commission members that would only serve when so many of you are either absent or compromised, conflicted on a project that you couldn't have a 3 vote.
Like if he were in Riyadh,
Unavailable, and we had to actually make a executive motion.
And then ultimately, could that be sort of automatic step up if you got a formal vacancy on that?
We could easily tap.
So it sort of gives them a role to play, sort of an associate role to play, and then move in.
What it has been an emeritus role in the past where people have moved off, but still know how the process works well enough to come in and review and make decisions. Easily could be a associate role.
I think that would be good to do it that way. So,
yeah.
Would your ex officio member have the right to vote? Most ex officios
They
don't.
only have the right to vote when the planning commission would not have a quorum without that vote. They're only brought in those cases, and that would only be on quasi judicial matters. So when it's an application.
So do we have a motion then to recommend the appointment of Mr. Hales to the Planning Commission and to designate Mr. Lawson as that ex officio?
I would motion that we recommend Charles Hales for the vacant position, and that we would encourage Mr. Lawson to accept the ex officio position.
I would second.
Any further discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Dan, where's our next pressing issue?
I've got a thought of the month for you this time. It was just a link to an article, 15-minute city. Interesting concepts, thought models about how to look at the world, have enough services within 15 minutes of your home. It's a pedestrian cyclist focused model to have those 15-minute services available by foot or pedal. But still the model can be applied to a place that drives more. I like it because Stevenson is really blessed to have so many services that we have.
Just as we're doing that, you had put out that email about the online course.
I was gonna bring that up.
Did anybody have a chance to do that? I was out.
I was, yeah, any other time, I would love to go. It was just bad timing.
I was back east at my family reunion.
Is this the roundabout one?
Yeah.
Yeah, right after our meeting. Yeah.
I attended it. It was really interesting, really informative. I can send the link to the video of it after.
Oh, really?
That'd be great.
It hits hard with the point right up front in a really clear way, where it lays out an intersection, a typical intersection, 2-lane meeting, 2 one-ways, and they note all the different conflict points that are there. something like 32 conflict points, and then a roundabout reduces those conflict points to 8. And so underscoring just how safe they are in comparison to the existing intersections that we have, and then the ways to make them safe for pedestrians using those facilities are to have that crossing, and this is how they're built, as you see them around, have the pedestrian crossing 1 vehicle length outside of the roundabout itself, so that there's stopping room. The crosswalk comes in at a way where the pedestrian is making eye contact with the driver coming out this way, and that increases safety too, to make it a human experience. So it was very good. I will make a note to send that.
Good. That's good.
I just put it in the minute.
Get on your staff report.
Staff reports. I'm going to start with the city council's strategic plan. They met in late May to do an initial strategic planning session, and then we met again on Saturday to finalize what that is. So very well facilitated session and very clear goals coming out of the city council. Honestly, clearer goals than I've seen them have in a dozen years. So happy to have that direction, and we'll try to fold the planning commission's work directly into some of those goals. For my workload coming out of that, analyzing, presenting, assessing housing affordability tools is going to be one of the things. Continuing to work on the parking assessment and recommendations, the trails plan that we're working on for the waterfronts, and development regulations, much like we do. Development regulations will probably wait until we assess some of those affordability goals to make sure that those are in line. With city council having clear set of goals to devolve down to this group, we'll try to present those in August, at the August meeting. And you should have a full planning commission at that time, so you can really establish the planning commission's work plan in order to achieve those goals and get us for this movement. So it feels good to have that. Another project that we've been working on is finalizing the downtown plan that hit a snag with COVID, the last COVID spike. But we will be meeting as the small Stewards of Success Committee on Friday. The goal of that meeting is for that group to bring 3 project ideas for the most pressing things to work on in the downtown together, assess what everyone's thinking, and make a priority list out of those things. Attach that priority list to the visionary aspirational aspects of the draft document put together in 2019, end of 2019, very beginning of 2020, and move on from the planning phase into implementation phase of downtown planning. Parking is one of those things that's very closely related to that. And it continues to come up in various ways. A lot of the times when planning commission has heard about parking, it's been parking is a hindrance to new development. That's not what we're hearing right now. What we're hearing right now is how the on-street supply is used. And so we'll be working with some of those conflict points out there to see if anything about the existing system needs to change, and including a look at loading zones as potential conflict points. So there's some stuff that may come to planning commission for some review and recommendation, or it may go directly to city council. It's not a zoning code function. And so we'll see really what the city council wants to hear from beyond their chamber walls to see if they want anything from the planning commission on that.
We'd heard one recommendation at one point in time for like a time limit in terms of parking along there, so you don't see business employees parking all day on those places, on those streets.
The new hotel, those people are parking everywhere and their cars stay there on the weekends, like on the street. Don't they have their own parking in the back?
Oh, that's why I can't get to the post office.
Yeah, it's really irritating.
There is one space on the site that I believe is used as an employee space. There is no
There's no
Parking.
parking for the customers.
for the customers, nor was there required to be. And so this may be an example of why we need our parking program. If that fell through the gaps, those gaps existed.
Yeah.
To fall through. So
Yeah, everybody goes to the post office, not everybody goes to the hotel. And they're unloading and luggage and everything, and that street is a one way. And there've been some issues.
the one way to address those issues would be to increase the parking supply, so that there's just more parking that's available out there. We are working with the transportation consultants that the city has had on board to cost out 6 projects, what it would take per parking space to add to the supply. And so we just identified some example projects that would be simply restriping in a corridor. What's that going to cost? And to get a new space by restriping, all the way up to the big project of doing a municipal lot. And so we'll have an average for the cost for each parking space, which will allow us to take that next step into considering some fee in lieu system. So right now we've got, say a new building would trigger 16 parking spaces, and there's no room on that site. And so that building doesn't get built. This would be a safety valve saying, okay, you can't do the 16 spaces on the site, pay for 16 spaces in the city, I'll do that. Or do the project by yourself to increase the on-street supply.
And as of right now, what are the city regulations on that?
It is far too complex to be able
Yeah.
to describe, but it's a certain number of parking spaces per square footage. And
Okay.
that square footage is going to depend on if you're a restaurant or a bank with customers coming in, or an office with no customers coming in.
Right.
There's a rubric, but it's,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
How much of that below the alley is available? I mean, there's the hotel and then there's the alleyway, right? And then there's,
It's a lot, somebody owns it.
so it's destined to be developed for something.
I think, what's his name in Hood River, Maui owns it, doesn't he?
Sold recently.
Did he?
So to answer the question, the alleyway is 16 feet wide. And so that's where parking could go. And then how much of an alleyway do you have left?
Right.
So
Gotcha.
Well, I still see the parking issue on Second Street is, it's not a safe situation to be in. A lot of traffic and a lot of people in town. Those car doors fly open and,
And there's big trucks.
and those big trucks. I think part of the solution is getting the roundabout so you can get the trucks. Because the eastbound trucks, it's an easy shot down on the first. The westbound trucks.
I think turning Stevenson into one big roundabout would be the perfect thing to do, but
But it would be nice to see something happen on Second. It's just not a wide enough right away. I'd be happy to see diagonal parking on one side of the street.
White Salmon tried the back end diagonal thing. Apparently that didn't work.
Well, they still got it. Well, Bingen does.
It's not back in though anymore, is it? It's
I think they cut it off. It just wasn't working.
Can you imagine backing into Second Street traffic though, to get out of a diagonal? That would be interesting
That's
too.
why they have the back end parking.
Yeah.
Is to
Yeah.
eliminate that,
So you can just
because when
pull
you
straight out.
go out, you got your sight line and you're going
Yeah.
straight out.
Yeah.
But people say, oh, I don't like to back up. Like, but you'd rather back up into traffic. I mean,
True
it's
that.
kind of. it's a
depends,
little
you're coming or
nonsense.
going, one way or the other.
I never thought Carson would go for a roundabout, but it seems to be working. So
Sorry, Ben.
it's
sorry
totally
to
good.
interrupt you.
This is input that's taken. Comprehensive plan workshop as requested. We are having a workshop on Wednesday So city administrator took this on as part of her duties. And so if you can make it on Wednesday, we will make it. We will make it into a workshop. And
Can Mary bring beer?
Whiskey.
Is it here?
What time?
Thank you.
6 to 8.
And one of the things that we settled on is that the comprehensive plan components of it are kind of esoteric. It's hard to wrap your head around. And so making it real to actually dive into the capital facilities plan and prioritizing projects for the future is an important way to demonstrate why the hell she applied for this in the first place. And so that it'll be focused on that and actually working on that budgeting aspect of it as a demonstration of what you're working on. So
Yeah, I saw some of those preliminary materials there. They're good. I'm hoping we get some good interest in that.
Is it in the paper?
It was in the paper. Yes.
I didn't get my paper.
that's all I have.
There's a lot of the stuff we're talking about in today's meeting, our capital improvement issues. And how do you deal with those and how you do that in an environment where we're seeing that increase in growth and development pressures.
Is undergrounding in any of those projects? Undergrounding the electrical?
One of the parking projects includes an undergrounding component. Undergrounding came up as one of the city council's projects to work on. It wasn't the immediate top priority, but it was very next in line to that. And so I think that when they review their strategic priorities, it will probably move into.
Where did broadband fall in the strategy?
That fell into the top.
They better get moving. The next technology is coming down the line.
What's that? I can't keep up.
Molecular transmission, using molecules to transfer data.
Broadband is technology agnostic. It's speed specific. And so if you're getting a speed that meets the federal threshold, which is shockingly low, then you have broadband, whether it's fiber or
I read the
molecular or
feasibility study for
cellular
the PUD.
or-
Yeah, that PUD study, everybody should read it. Yeah, it is shockingly low. And if Korea can get 100 megabytes download and upload, why can't we?
And the unfortunate thing is that it's so low that Stevenson is well covered under those standards.
Well, and the other,
No.
well, the other thing with broadband is redundancy. Do you want an underground redundancy, which will fall on you guys because it's cable? Or do you, or because if the satellites fall out of the sky, then do you have a backup system for the internet?
Oh, Elon Musk is not gonna let all the satellites fall out of the sky.
It's interesting. Things that I follow are to do with the Navy, which I was in, into the very painful experience of having to learn celestial navigation.
Mm.
And then they discontinued it because they had GPS. And now, 3 years ago,
I can use,
everybody going through the Naval Academy must now learn celestial navigation.
I can use a sextant.
Because
Guess what?
it's reliable.
Satellites are
And
not
those
dependable.
satellites may not be around.
Yeah. You
So-
get a sunburst or something and they're gone. So you want something, and and our landlines disappearing is not a good thing either. So
That's right.
just something, strategic plans need to include the infrastructure with a redundancy. The Russians are really good at this. They have such really good redundant, simple backups. You don't do something fancy if you wanted to
stay working. You do the hard stuff, and putting things underground is safer all the way around. Well, this has been a joy.
I do have one more thing from Anne. We took as a planning commission slogan, "We're here for good." From Charlie,
Oh, I like that.
He's taking
We're
notes.
good.
yeah, splendid misery. And so we'll try to make sure that our work plans keep it on the splendid side.
Here for good. I mean, that's kind of ominous. Does that mean here forever?
You can't
Think
retire.
positive.
Here for
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
You have to have good.
Exactly.
Linda, the good.
Yes, exactly.
So I would remind everybody that the primary is coming up and
When
vote,
should we receive ballots?
July
15th.
That's what I was thinking. Okay.
So vote for Davy Ray. I'm gonna go to DC and kick some ass.
There you go, buddy.
Take some names too.
So motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
No, why not?
Second?
Yeah.
We're
Even
adjourned.
Johanna left.
Sure.
Night, Joanna.
It went over an hour. I had one that was just a little under an hour.
So we'll get there.